Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to the podcast. This is Big Reptile Talk, the place where we bring animal keepers into business. Now, the show used to be about reptiles, but I kind of changed it up. I want to bring any animal keeper into business. If you keep reptiles, if you keep ants, I had JMR Zoological on. He keeps elephants. If you keep animals, I want to talk to you. I want to see what you got going on. So, everybody in the chat, welcome, welcome, welcome. I see you coming in. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is going to be an amazing show. But before we begin, we got to pay those bills. This podcast is brought to you by Mile High Mutations. Shout out to my brother Dan over there producing just high quality snakes. Make sure you hit up his Instagram. Make sure you hit up his Morph Market. Give him some love. Shout out to my guy Eugene over at Morphed Ambitions, the sponsor of the channel. He's producing amazing snakes. And not just that, he produces high quality mulch. So he's one-stop shop where you can get mulch, you can get a snake, and get anything that you need. Shout out to my guy, Large Marge Morse, man. I appreciate you for being a sponsor of the channel. Thank you so much, brother. MKL Exotics, man. My brother Mike out in Canada producing amazing, amazing snakes. He produces hognose snakes, and it's like who wouldn't want an awesome hognose snake? So make sure you go check him out. Give him some love. Shout out to my brother Fries Critters. I appreciate you for being a sponsor of the channel, man. Just much love. Y'all make sure y'all head over to Instagram. Give him some love. Tell him Derek's Reptile sent you. Shout out to my brother Mad River Service and Rattery, just producing amazing, amazing ball pythons. I see you over there, brother. Definitely need some more attention. Now, I want to take time right here. Shout out to my brother Moreno, man. You already know Morse. Anybody will tell you I love the Exantic snakes. Exantic is my favorite morph along with pastel. I'll tell anybody that. I'm pretty basic. I like the basic morph. So this clutch is super high quality. Shout out to my brother Matt Yates, man. I appreciate you for being a sponsor of the channel. He too has amazing animals. Ball of hand pythons, man. I love you, brother. Thank you for supporting me, man. You have amazing snakes and you need more attention. And King's Reptiles, man. Husband and wife duo producing amazing snakes. Shout out to them. Y'all go give them a follow. They definitely deserve it. And last but not least, my brother Low Life Exotics, man. I appreciate you for being a sponsor of the channel, man. Y'all go give Low Life Exotics a follow. And before we start, let's see. We got a couple people in the chat. Fries Critters, man. Definitely, I see you, brother. Moon over Miami, much love. Thank you for being an early bird special. Lafite ASMR. Texoma Exotics. Holly, I see you. Shout out to my Animal House in the building. Morbid Sadistic Balls, I see you, brother. Shout out to Joe Chaloner. We got Cat Eyes. We got the Kersey Cruise Zoo. A lot of early birds. LKB Pythons, I see you. As always, man, I appreciate you guys being here. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to have Joey, a.k.a. the king of DIY. And this is going to be a fun podcast, so don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll have him here.
Whoa. Big reptile talk. Yeah, we working. Talking about service. Big reptile talk. When it comes to talking about snakes, yeah. Know that we got for them effect. Yeah, big reptile talk. Let's talk about reptiles. Yeah, big reptile talk. Let's talk about reptiles.
Oh, let me get that up. I didn't know that was still up. Welcome, 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 Mr. Joey, man. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Derek. Thanks for having me, my friend.
Man, I'm excited to have you here, man, because you're crushing it in all aspects. Everything that you do, you got the Midas touch.
I wish.
Now, before we start, I want to give a shout out to my buddy because I told him I was going to do it. I became a fan when I started following this guy. So shout out to my Animal House. He made a do-it-yourself video, and I started looking up do-it-yourself videos, and I came across you, and I'm like, this dude is just crushing it when it comes to these fish tanks and everything that he's doing, man. So what got you in the game, man? What made you? Actually, let's start with on a different subject. Why fish?
Well, I guess I've always loved animals in general. I like cats, I like dogs, turtles. I've had a little bit of everything. But I suppose when it came to fish, there was something serene about it, something calming. It just seemed like it was just so fascinating to me. I couldn't understand how like they were surviving under the water, for example. Like you never really think of those things when you're younger. You know, fish are living down there, but I was like, man, it's so crazy that they're just breathing the water, and I never understood it, and I just became so fascinated by it and so encapsulated so quickly that I had to have one. And my first fish tank, of course, I thought piranha were vicious predators, and you know some species can be, but my first fish I ever got was a single red belly piranha, and I tossed it in a 10-gallon tank, which I do not recommend doing, but you know every time a new hobbyist gets into the hobby, and this was 20 years ago, so we don't have access to the information that we do today. You know, I couldn't just ask somebody or jump on the internet, or you know, it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So made a ton of mistakes and did a lot of silly things. And luckily, I found my local aquarium club rather quickly, and you know that escalated my hobby a lot faster than I certainly would have done on my own. So things just and I just never got out of it.
That is a amazing story. Now, when you think about your first fish, you know, you think of the goldfish, you think of the typical fish. Your first fish was a piranha right out the
Yeah.
gate.
Yeah, always been kind of attracted to a lot of more of the exotic fish in the hobby. However, when it comes to, and a lot of the times they end up being a little bit more expensive, so I haven't been lucky in that department. Like you know, Asian arowana is my favorite fish. I have them, and they cost thousands of dollars a piece. I'm sure, like in the reptile hobby, there's certain morphs and whatnot that just fetch ridiculous prices. But you know, you like what you like, unfortunately. But it's the complete opposite when it comes to the saltwater hobby and coral. I like all the cheap stuff that like hardcore reef enthusiasts like kind of turn their nose up at type of thing and consider it pests and that and but I've always been attracted to like the cheaper coral, so I benefited there, but nothing else. But pricing is a huge concern. In every hobby, because at the end of the day it is a hobby, and you know animal keeping is by far one of the most expensive, time consuming, lifelong commitments that you could have. So do it yourself for me was because it served two purposes. I could build what's not available in my area, but most importantly, I was just broke. I didn't have the money to buy like big tanks and big filters, but I needed them because my fish required them. So I just started building everything. And not because I have a background in that, and not that I'm educated in any form, but because I was just determined and to provide the proper housing that these fish required and needed. And I was lucky enough to just, you know, take a shot at it, because most people are really nervous building fish tanks and whatnot. And these days, the only thing that makes me nervous is the cost of everything. It's not cheap for me to build a fish tank anymore. I might as well buy them almost
Right.
at any size. The cost of materials and shipping, and nobody has anything in stock. I just ordered new materials to build 9 new tanks. And they are costing me probably 3 times as much as it would have 3 years ago.
Wow.
So things have just gotten out of control really quickly in terms of pricing and whatnot. But I'm sure it's the same in the reptile hobby. I mean, manufactured things are just simply expensive. You need something specific, custom. So do-it-yourself always comes in handy. Building enclosures is nothing new. People have been doing it since the dawn of the aquarium and the reptile hobby. It's not like companies popped up and invented snakes. Like here's some enclosures, and we also invented snakes for you to keep them in. Humans wanted to keep them, and we have to figure out ways that we can keep them in an environment that's ideal for them. But ultimately, it doesn't matter what type of environment. A lot of the times, you know, they're still in captivity. A lot of times I do feel a little bit better knowing that most animals don't live as long as they do in captivity as they would in the wild.
Right.
Especially a lot of morphs. I was watching your thing before this, and some of your favorite morphs. I think it might have been. It looked like xanthic, some sort of a xanthic morph, which is something that I like. I like the black and white morphs. That's why I like black diamond stingrays that are all black with white spots. I'm also colorblind, so it helps me to see these a little bit better and be able to appreciate them. But that's a type of snake that probably wouldn't survive in the wild. In its native area. Most of them are, from what I understand, camouflaged specifically for that area. to kind of look like a stick or whatever they might be, or maybe it's from a desert. I mean, I might be talking out my butt. I have no
Oh,
clue.
you're fine. You're
I,
fine.
I'm assuming it's similar to fish and why they are colored the way they are. It's
Right.
due to, you know, blending in or attracting mates and, you know, a wide variety of reasons. But when we get into the morphs, albino and lutistic, especially in our hobby, those fish do not survive in the wild, period. They rarely even exist or are captured because they just stand out like a sore thumb and are preyed upon rather quickly.
Right. Now, I want to start talking about some of your fish, man, because your collection is just massive. So I know this is going to be a hard question, and shout out to my animals for the super chat. Um, Currently, your collection. I know this is a tough question, but what is your favorite fish right now?
It's not hard for me to answer that question. At one point, it was because, well, I'm a father of 2 children, and I kind of looked at my animals as kids. I'm not one of those dog people that think my dog, that I have a dog it's equal to one of my children. I understand it, but now that my children are teenagers, especially my daughter, I can certainly pick who's my favorite out of my children. So I might as well apply it to my fish. My Asian arowana, by far, I always put it this way: if I can only keep one fish, it'd be an Asian arowana. I keep it by itself. But if I had to keep one species of fish, it would be freshwater stingrays, specifically, most likely like black diamond stingrays, which are the Leopoldi, but sexier.
I love it. I love it. We're gonna keep going, but Darlene, she said, "Oh wow, is being colorblind hard on you in any aspect?"
It's not like so some people think I see black and white, but a lot of people are colorblind, and most people just don't know. I remember getting eye tests and stuff when I was a kid, and was a strong duotan, meaning that I don't see the certain colors the way you do. I don't see the certain hues or differences. It used to be difficult for me to see the difference between like red and green, purple and blue, and those types of colors. So I can still see things. I would describe it as it's probably just not as vibrant as you see. A little
Right.
duller. Yeah.
Now, I want to have a little fun, and we'll keep going. I want to give you a hot seat question. You have an amazing girlfriend, so I have to give you a little hard.
Correct you, fiance. She killed me if she watches this, and I didn't correct you.
Oh, that's your fiance? Well,
Yeah.
she's beautiful, and
She
thank you
killed
for
me if I
saying
didn't
that.
correct you.
Thank you for saying that. Your fiance is beautiful. So the hot seat question is: have you ever wanted some fish for one of your projects, but the cost was like, let's say the cost was $1,000. Maybe you say, "Babe, I really need this fish for my project." It was $1,000, but you told her they were 200. Have you ever fibbed?
Say that again.
My question to you is: have you
I
ever
gotta be
fibbed?
careful. I gotta walk. I gotta be careful.
So the hot seat question is: have you ever fibbed about the cost of a fish to your fiance? Have you ever told her, "Honey, this is a $200, but it was really $1,000"?
No, I've never lied or anything like that. I haven't really fish shopped in a while, or got many fish that were expensive lately. I will be in the next coming months. I'm gonna have to drive to New York. I decided I'm gonna drive down there and get some really, really cool fish that like the hobby doesn't talk about or rarely sees. But if I ever feel like I need to lie about the cost, I just tell her to look at her left finger and yeah, a reminder. Well, I could have got you a smaller one. So
I love it. Now, you're so big in the fish hobby. To me, you're like the Brian Barczyk, but of the fish community. So my, give us some advice. What do you think is like the worst mistake new fish keepers make?
Oh man, I think that since the internet's existed, so many people have like talked about so many things, and I don't know what it's like in the reptile hobby, but like it seems as though people are trying to reinvent the wheel and saying that you don't need to know about this and don't worry about that. And I think what a lot of it is people are running out of things to talk about on their YouTube channel, so they're trying to come up with a way to have some new, theory about the biological cycle of an aquarium. But that's my biggest thing is look at your aquarium as if you're keeping bacteria and not fish. Learn about the nitrogen cycle. It's incredibly simple to learn about. And if you master that, you will master fish keeping. You can essentially keep darn near anything so long as you provide them with a healthy environment. It would be similar to, like, in the reptile hobby, the proper humidity could be life and death. UV bulbs or UVA or UVB, I'm not sure what they use these days, but it's just the environment is everything. And when it comes to the aquarium hobby, it's making sure the water can take that kind of waste because they're living in it. So we have bacteria that takes care of that, and that's something that I think people should learn about first and foremost, is learn about the nitrogen cycle. Do not chase numbers. Use the water that's coming out of your tap, of course, treated for chlorine and chloramines. But other than that, most industries are designed to keep you spending money and keep you buying things. That's why when you buy a fish tank, the stores maybe make 5-10% on that. Everything, they make all their money on the livestock and like the additives of tanks that and food and that sort of thing, and things that raise your pH and lower your pH, and it can adjust this and tweak that. And I think that almost all of that in almost every situation is abundantly useless. I prefer providing stability as opposed to constant fluctuations, even if it's not ideal. Because in our hobby, when we're looking in the water, a lot of the times people will say, well, where that fish is from in the wild, that is not the pH, that's not the hardness, that sort of thing. I'm like, well, these are not wild caught fish, and a lot of the fish in the hobby have not been taken from the wild in so long, and they're so they've been raised in tanks and captive raised for so long that they're more used to our water than they are to the wild. Like discus, of course. Discus are supposed to be the hardest fish in the aquarium hobby, and I would say, yeah, at one point they certainly were incredibly delicate, incredibly finicky, incredibly difficult to keep because most of them were wild caught. But most discus in the hobby these days are not. You can still get wild caught, but I don't see the point.
Right.
But they're more used to water parameters that we can provide, and consistency is certainly key. I always provide consistency over everything. Whether the temperature's not right or wrong, I don't make any jumps in anything. If I notice the temperature's too low, I'll spend a couple of days raising it. You can temperature shock. There's so many things you could do to shock your fish and cause acute stresses, but you got to be careful with letting me talk.
No, I love it. I love it. That's what it's for. You're giving us great information. I love it.
But yeah, the best thing you can learn getting into the aquarium hobby is to simply research the biological, the nitrogen cycle, essentially. And basically, if you Google the nitrogen cycle, you're going to get a bunch of drawings that looks like it's teaching a third grader, and it's really that simple to understand. It's a little circle. Fish create waste. Waste is taken in by the bacteria. It's released, blah, blah, blah. It's just like a little circle. As soon as you learn that and understand how long it takes, and I wrote about it in my book about bacteria, and I wrote an entire chapter on filtration, and I talked about what bacteria actually need and how we can provide them homes. Because, like I said, in my opinion, when I'm building filtration systems, I'm focused on the bacteria exclusively. But yeah, the nitrogen cycle is the single most important thing that you should learn getting into the hobby.
Watchers that are watching, I better pay attention because he's giving us great knowledge. He's dropping gems on us. Once in your backyard has a question. He says, since you've used Pond Shield quite a bit, do you think it will hold up in the alligator pond?
Since I've used what? Oh, Pond Shield.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and use it, and get a little sample or something. Figure out a sample and apply it to anything you want. First and foremost, it's an epoxy, and it's a thick epoxy. So if you ever want to, it would be like 800 layers of paint. Once you take it off and try to like break it, it doesn't break, it bends. If you try to get it off of like wood or concrete, you're breaking up pieces of wood and concrete with it. But Pond Shield isn't, or Pond Armor, whatever you want to call it, isn't the only epoxy you can go with. You can go with a tremendous amount of different types of epoxies. You want to go for marine-rated ones that are typically used on boats. There's other products out there. I remember, I think it was 12 years ago, I used liquid rubber. It was the first time any aquarium was built with it, and I was nervous. But a lot of people use that in their terrariums these days to kind of waterproof it, and it works fantastic when they're building them out of plywood and whatnot. But Yeah, Pond Shield, I use it consistently simply because I know it works and I know how to mix it. But I also have like a direct line to the owner of the company. His name's Butch. So if I ever have any problems, I just like kind of message him. So I guess I have that. But it's simple, super simple to mix, and super simple to apply. Just don't be scared of it, and just follow the instructions. No, don't. Oh God, he'll get pissed if I say that. But follow my instructions. Do it how I do it, because I've followed instructions before and I always screw it up. Like even if I buy something from IKEA, I rarely look at the. Well, I've learned the hard way. I read them now, but I used to rarely read them because I always just mess it up anyways. But yeah, it's super easy to use. I think you'll enjoy it.
Now, I want to talk about the do-it-yourself side, man. Now, you have so much knowledge when it comes to building things. My question to you is, do you have a mentor or are you self-taught?
No, it's all me. I have a GED education. I dropped out in grade 11. Um, Not because I didn't want to go to school. I didn't even have a book bag that day. My first day in grade 11, my first week, I didn't have a book bag, didn't have lunch money, I didn't have a pencil. I was embarrassed and I didn't want to be there. I was humiliated and I didn't have a way to get any of that stuff. So I dropped out. And I ended up getting my GED when I was about 22, I think it was. So about 18 years ago. I just turned 40. But I have no training whatsoever, not in the trades or anything, just all self-taught. I build my websites alone, all the camera work, all the editing. When you're passionate about something, you really will teach yourself. And it's unfortunate that like it used to eat up all of my time. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd work on websites or videos or build something, and then I'd go to work for 8 to 10 hours, come home, do that some more. Weekends were for filming, and I did that over and over and over again, 7 days a week for years upon years, kind of mastering this and dedicating myself to it. And then just a few years ago, I was able to kind of dedicate myself full-time to YouTube as it began to generate more and more revenue. But yeah, no formal training, no education. I've since gone back to college at certain times during my career on YouTube, but that was it. Right. I also dropped out of that. I dropped out of I think the first month of college. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Now
all the pencils in the world, though, just didn't want to do it.
I was kind of the same way. I didn't really like school either. But now I do have a question. You everything that you've done, you've absolutely crushed it. So what was your favorite DIY project?
Oh man. There's like a few key moments that really changed everything for me. I built some really cool tanks over the years, everything from turning old TVs into fish tanks, upside down tanks, corner tanks, concrete, acrylic, glass, plywood. But I gotta say, the first plywood aquarium that I built, I think it was 237 gallons, so it wasn't that big, like 5 feet long, I think maybe 3 feet, 4 feet wide, and a couple feet tall. It wasn't how cool that build was. It was so eye-opening. That's when I felt like unstoppable. I can keep anything I want now, because if I can't get what they need, I'll build it. And it just took one tank for me to do that. Yeah, so it was an empowering moment. Wasn't my favorite build at all. It was very ugly, bulletproof tank, but it wasn't my best looking tank. None of my tanks are that great looking. Look good on camera, the builds, but I can make them hold water, and that's about as far as I take it. That's why I don't build to sell. So many people want me to build tanks to sell them. No, I'm not a craftsman. I can't make this look pretty.
Samson, my boy Samson Riviera said 237 gallons, not that big, question mark.
Well, I built a 2,000 gallon tank, and that's 10 feet long, 4 feet deep, and 7 feet front to back. But a 375 gallon, I built a 540 gallon. I built a lot bigger. I guess it was huge for and that's a funny thing, because he's right, 237 gallons is pretty big. At that time, and this is how delayed my local hobby was, in all of Atlantic Canada, I had the largest privately owned aquarium. And that's the size it was, 237 gallons. It wasn't a massive tank. It was, but just went to show, like, the biggest tank you could buy was 130 gallons. Mind you, I built that tank for stingrays. I really wanted to get into stingrays. I realized they're going to need more than what I can provide. I researched them for like a year or two before I committed to buying one, because the first ray I bought was it was called a teacup stingray. And that's just creative marketing to say, oh, these guys stay small and, they're $100. But for me, $100 was a lot of money then. I knew that this stingray wasn't going to stay small, but the stores never sold tanks big enough for them. They didn't sell filters big enough for a tank, even if I found one. They didn't even sell the food, but they sold the fish, and that's a very common thing in the industry. Is they'll sell the fish, but nothing that can support them, which I always found bizarre. So a joke used to be, because I did so much do-it-yourself, and a lot of companies within my industry didn't like me. It's like, you might not like me, but at one point you created me. So
I love that. I love your story, man. It's so awesome just to be like, you know what, I can keep whatever I want because I can build whatever it needs. I can build whatever it needs to house it. Yeah. That is so freaking awesome. Now I want to I definitely want to ask you, we all have those trouble projects. So what project do you feel like, or do you feel like you never had that moment to where it was like, okay, damn, this might be more than I could chew. I might have bit out more than I could chew.
Jeez.
Or do you feel like you just absolutely crushed every project? You didn't have any doubt with anyone?
Well, in the build process, I do find that confidence is key for everything. I cannot walk into it nervous or scared. That's when I make mistakes. I can share a story where I had a 540-gallon aquarium that I built. I built this tank because I wanted a really big tank for stingrays, but didn't want to spend the money on one. So I was like, okay, I'm going to build one. But buying the glass to like build it, far too expensive. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do plywood and glass, but even the panels were expensive. So I decided I'm going to go buy some secondhand tanks. And these secondhand tanks were like $100 each. They were 6 feet long. They're about 135 gallons or something. I took those two tanks apart and built a big square tank that was 6 feet by 6 feet by 2 feet.
Is it the same code?
And a plywood bottom. But anyways, that one was kind of difficult, but cheap and unique. However, I took it apart one day. Or I needed to take it apart, and during the taking it apart process,
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. During the taking it apart process, a lot of people don't trust silicone until you have to take a fish tank apart and you realize how strong it is. But I was taking it apart, and this glass was a half-inch thick, and somehow my hand was down near the bottom of where the bottom of the tank was, and a piece of half-inch glass dropped from 2 feet and landed on my hand.
Oh my
God! I looked at it, and my whole hand was numb. And I looked at it, and there was just like a little line there, and I was like, "Oh, but it was dented and a little bit red. It wasn't a big deal." I was like, "Oh, I better go put a Band-Aid on that." So I go upstairs, and I'm rinsing it in the sink, and that's when it splits open. And I hear in the sink like little ting, 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 like little pieces of my bone were falling out. I almost cut my whole finger off. I had to get reconstructive surgery twice. I don't know if you'll be able to see.
I can solo. Yeah, hold on, let me solo you. Oh yeah.
Right, it's right here.
Oh yeah.
And this was 10 years ago, so it's healed up quite nicely. But, and it's weird because as a guy, and in our teen years, or even we punch things when we get mad. I will never hit anything again in my life simply because I found out what's inside my hand, and it is not just your skin and your bone. There's like layers of so much ligaments and veins and so much you can damage, and then you got to live with that for life. So, yeah, after the reconstructive surgery, it's back to normal. It's 100%, and it just has a cool story.
Right. I agree.
Cool, but it's a story.
I agree with you. Like it's crazy with any project. You definitely gotta have that confidence. The doubt is you can't have doubt when you're building big projects like you're building. Now, my question to you is like to have a little fun since you're building everything. Approximately, I want you to guess how much money do you think you saved yourself over the course of your time building stuff?
I never really thought of it like that, but I do know that usually when I build a really big tank, prior to the lockdown and stuff, and when the economy was normal, I would build it for like the bigger the tank was, the more I would save. But I always probably paid about 25% or less building it than I would have buying it. So if a tank would have cost $1,000 to buy, I could build it for like 250 or less.
Man, that's a lot of money saved.
Yeah, and then that money saved is building the filters, and you just keep saving if you're going to keep building things and coming up with creative ways to do it. And then you have a tremendous amount of money left over for the animals. So I was building these tanks and then had these super expensive fish in there. And people were like, wow, his fish are so cool, and he's building these tanks. So they trusted the builds because these expensive fish were in there. And I was like, well, if I didn't build this, I wouldn't have been able to justify or afford the fish that I have. I probably have a bunch of goldfish swimming around or something. That's all the money I'd have left.
So it's almost like, I could build this tank, save a lot of money, and use the money that I saved to invest in awesome, amazing fish.
Yeah, so you don't feel guilty about it at all.
I love that. I love that, man. Now, being in the reptile hobby, we have so many reptile expos. They're freaking amazing. I love going to them. I've never been to Aquashella, and you're on the fish side. So take me through a day. I'm sure you've been to Aquashella. How is Aquashella?
All of the larger conventions for the the aquarium hobby are relatively similar. You'll have a bunch of vendors, and then you'll have some speakers, and then you'll have a few interesting things going on. But now that YouTube's a thing and YouTubers are there, it's probably a little more entertaining. But I don't find them to be okay, so like I said, when I first got into the hobby, I got into it in the local club scene. That was my first impression. And when you join an aquarium club, you meet every month, and sometimes there's speakers, but then there's auctions, and you can swap fish and swap plants, and you meet local people. And I liked that a lot more than the bigger conventions because I keynote spoke at Reefapalooza, Reef Stock, and other reefing shows, and I do find that almost all of them are pretty much the same, but they don't have that club feel. So this year, instead of speaking at any conventions or anything, I'm going to speak at clubs, small aquarium clubs all across the world, with the next one being in Ohio on March 10th. But because I believe firmly, and I don't know what the reptile hobby's like, but aquarium clubs are the lifeblood of the hobby. Same with the local fish store, and without them, we don't exist anymore. And now that people go to massive conventions, because I was doing it too, just as guilty. I was like, why would I go to all these little clubs when I could just go to this big convention, all these birds with one stone, instead of going to these smaller places. Meanwhile, all these little clubs are dying out because nobody wants to be involved anymore. I just want to shine some light on them. Everybody's buying things online. Little fish stores are dying out. And I'm going to make it my point to kind of bring back a little bit of attention back to aquarium clubs and, your local fish stores by touring them and visiting and speaking at them. And, because without them, we literally won't have a hobby. We'll learn to survive. People are already in it. But, in 10, 15 years, when there's no more, your local fish stores, and I guess there always will be, but no clubs and no real community, I think it just dies out tremendously. And so I think that we need to, perhaps even in the reptile hobby, is make sure that we still give love to the mom and pop spots and your clubs and that sort of thing. The conventions are awesome. It's a great experience, but in my opinion, this year at least, I'm going to make sure that show a lot of attention to the clubs instead.
And I hate to interrupt you, but I love that train of thinking. And it's the same for the reptile hobby. It's like, yes, you could go to Petco. Yes, you can go to PetSmart. But I don't want to do that. I want to go to the mom and pop reptile stores, the people that, are, from the ground up, because they need that attention. They need those sales. And without them, the reptiles are gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that train of thinking. Now, I want to talk about YouTube because you've been crushing it, man. So first off, 15 years on YouTube, man. How does that feel?
Sometimes it feels like I've been doing it a long time, and then other times I feel like I'm just getting started. you know, I can say like one of the things that I didn't see coming was to ever like make it and like my channel to grow and get big with it. And a lot of the things that come with that, you change as a creator, and you have to deal with a lot of things that you don't have to as a smaller creator. Um, and one of the things that I'm dealing with right now is just trying to get back to my roots and why I do what I do, and make the videos that I really like doing, as opposed to doing what the algorithm wants me to. And I can tell you, I'm paying for it. I'm definitely paying for not doing what the algorithm wants me to. But it's been interesting, and I guess it's been a long road. I always wondered when I would stop. And I guess I would stop when I'm not having fun anymore, or when I didn't wake up and feel like I have a purpose doing this anymore. So I have no clue how much longer I'll do it. I never expected it to do this in the first place. I mean, I started my YouTube channel just to have a place to upload my videos somewhere, because we used to use PhotoBucket and TinyPic and all these other little places, and then YouTube came along, because I started uploading really soon after YouTube existed, and I just used it to host my video so I could share it at a local club, on the forum. And the only reason I made a video is because the forums at that point would time out. Like, you would type up this big write-up and I'm trying to show them something I'm doing, and I upload a bunch of pictures, and maybe it's taken me 20-25 minutes. I go to hit submit, and then it's all gone and it says timed out. So I was like, oh man. So that's why I started making videos. I was like, I'm just going to make a video. I'll talk about it real quick, or just film it real quick and then share it. And that's why I had a YouTube channel to begin with.
Well, your YouTube, like I said, anything that you touch, the Midas touch, whether it comes to fish, do-it-yourself projects, YouTube. Now I'm going to say two numbers, and I want you to tell me, and I love that you're so humble, but it's okay not to be humble.
It depends on the day.
I love that you're so humble. 1.5 million subs, 364,350,795 views. There's TV shows that don't get views like that.
Yeah, maybe. It's hard to, I guess it's hard to compare it or to fathom, it's I don't know. I guess, at one point nobody was really doing it, so I had nobody to compare to. I was the #1 aquarium channel once I hit 20,000 subscribers. Over the last year or so, there's been some that have passed, but like, if I never, and Brian Barachak, for example, never, kind of laid the road down, and opened the doors, I think that YouTube would just it would just look different. But I remember the first time Brian messaged me. I've stayed at his house before a couple times, by the way. I've been
have you?
Reptarium before, yeah. Yeah, I've known Brian for a while. He was just texting me I think it was yesterday. First time I ever talked to Brian, though, was on YouTube. YouTube used to have an inboxing system, so you could like inbox people, like DM them.
Did they?
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. YouTube used to be so much different.
Right.
There used to be something called the partner program, and now everybody has it. Once you hit 4,000 views or watch hours or something, and then 1,000 subscribers. But at that point, you used to have to apply to be in the YouTube partner program. And if you were approved, you could have ads in your videos. Otherwise, they would just put ads. They would ask you for specific videos if that video was doing really well. So I remember becoming a YouTube partner after 3 years of applying, and I thought I was gonna make bank. I think I made $3 or $1 or something my first month, but it definitely didn't make a lot of money at first. But the first time I ever talked to Brian was in my messagings, and I knew who he was. And to me, he was like the god of the animal kingdom, and I saw his name, and I looked twice. I was like, what? I was like, I opened it, and he's like, hey, do you want to do a collab video some point? Maybe you can come down and visit. And I was like, yeah, that would be pretty cool, I guess. I mean, I was like, type back, like, yeah, I'll see what I can do or whatever. I don't know if I can, trying to play it cool. You ever get so excited about somebody talking to you, you just jump up and you're like, oh, guess who just messaged me? Guess if that's what it was like for me. I was so pumped. I don't even think he knows that. Well, of course he doesn't know that. I don't want him to think I'm flirting with him, but it was, that was the first time. And then I ended up going down a couple of times and met RJ and made some really great and productive videos and helped him out a little bit there. But at one point, if any channel collabed with my channel, like 4 or 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, they would get shot way up into the algorithm because YouTube had whitelisted my channel. And they were pushing and pumping my channel. I got to the #1 trending video at one point. The trending
Oh,
page
wow.
the trending page at one point was curated, and a lot of people didn't think it was. But one of the staff members typed out a blurb about my video and put it on the trending page, and that's when I knew I was like, this is curated. They're hand selecting and putting my videos in the trending page. Trending page doesn't mean anything these days, but at one point when you went to YouTube, first thing you landed on was the trending page. Now, there's one other little story I'll tell you about Brian.
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
And it's the reason why I'll always back him up. I'll always defend him, and I'll always do anything he asks me to do within reason, of course, if I can. Like he wants me to come down to Animal Con. That was what he was messaging me yesterday, but I'm booked for that weekend out in Calgary. But if that doesn't work out, I'll be there. The first time, no, not the first time. I think, it may have been the first time I stayed with him. We stayed at his house. And mind you, we filmed all day at, it was right before the Reptarium existed. He was kind of like building it, maybe, thinking about renting it. And he walked me through it and that sort of thing. But, and the whole time I'm like, man, this guy's just like he is on YouTube. Sounds like him, talks like him. I'm like... This is exhausting, first and foremost. I don't know how he does it all day. But then we go back to his house, and he's still like that. I'm like, there's no cameras, man. We don't have to. And because when the camera's on, you got to be on. And you got to have a little bit of energy. Because most of the time, I'm relatively quiet. Not most of the time. Very rarely, but... after a long day of travel and filming and everything we were doing, I thought he'd be tired. So he starts talking about this documentary he wanted to do in Africa. And he was doing some sort of a fundraiser for it. But anyways, he started talking about why he wanted to do it and how much he just loves animals. And he's just like in tears telling me about his love for animals. And I was like, damn, this guy's really doing this for the right reasons. And and so when people that got a little reptarium thing or a little reptile enclosure in their basement of their mom's house that judge Brian or say horrible things about him or he's not doing this or he's not doing that, I mean, it's got to be rooted in jealousy and envy. I'm a huge fan of Brian, and I've seen him firsthand and his love for his animals, and I think that a lot of people probably talk like that about me. They'll see numbers and they'll see this and that, and they'll look for a reason not to like you. And that's one of the scariest things about being on YouTube is people have 10 minutes to judge you as a person and as a whole. And if you've been online for as long as I've been online, at times you're going to say something stupid, or you're in a live, you say something stupid, but you can't put when you get on turn the camera on, you risk showing your personality, and that's what some people will judge their because I used to think that they were going to make fun of me because I was only 25 when I got on video for the first time. I thought, I'm too young to be taken serious. You got to be like a professor to be taken serious. They're going to make fun of my appearance or my teeth or, something about me. And none of that happened. So that's been great. But when it comes to Brian, he has a really good heart and he does things for a really good reason. He's really smart with his business and his YouTube channel and whatnot, but that's a huge passion of his as well, and a massive part of his hobby. He eats, breathes, and sleeps this. I do not. At one point I did, but I had to find boundaries and, but he works with his whole family. I mean, it's his whole life. He doesn't really do much stuff in his personal life. I mean, they go out for dinner once in a while that I know of. But other than that, this is what he does.
Right.
He's at that reptarium, or at least working until late, and then he goes home and he's doing editing, and then maybe he'll go to sleep, and then right back up the very next morning. Like, and very next morning, he's fully dressed, got his camera ready, and I'm like, man, can we have a coffee? Like, let me have a coffee. He's ready to go at like 6, 7 in the morning. He's just way too much for me.
I love it. I love it, man. And that's what we're talking about, man. Just social media. I wanted to just touch base on a lot of things. Now, before we keep going, I do got to give you a homework assignment. Are you ready?
Okay.
Now, we already went over the numbers. 1.5 million subs, over 364 million views. Now, the next time your fiance asks you to take the trash out, I want you to say these exact words. 364 million views. You take the trash out.
Yeah. So, she takes the trash out sometimes. Most of the time, actually. I mean, she does a lot. We share a lot of the responsibilities around the house and do a lot of things together. We work together as a really great team. Nobody really complains or anything like that. So I don't think it'll come a time when, if she tells me to take the trash out, I'm gonna have to. I mean, I'm not gonna not take it out.
I'm just giving you a hard time now. This is something that I'm working towards. It's one of my dreams. I've been on YouTube for 4 years. I'm working towards that plaque. How did it feel getting that plaque for 100K? I think I'm at like 64K right now. Getting that 100K plaque. Take us back to that day.
Well, when I started YouTube, I don't think they existed. It's a relatively newer reward system that if I were to track it, it didn't exist when I even had 20,000 subscribers. I don't believe. I can't remember. I have the original one, by the way.
The original YouTube one? Oh, let me see. Solo layout.
Disseco.
How awesome is that?
Yeah, so that's the original, and then the one that's hanging up there. Well,
that's the million.
That's the million, yeah.
Oh,
it's
man.
Made of, like cardboard or something, and that's a beer poster that I made without Tamara's permission, but that's also her.
I love it, man. Making videos, hidden goals. I love it. Like, give us some YouTube advice. What's some advice for up and coming creators that want to follow in your footsteps?
Do it for the right reasons. Do it because you enjoy it. Do it because you love it, because the odds are stacked entirely against you. So what I mean by that is, if you make it, fantastic. But if you don't, at least you did something that you really enjoyed anyways, and there's a no-lose situation. What you should do at all times is maintain your integrity. Don't sell out too soon. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities to sell out on YouTube, trust me. But really focus on taking risks in terms of how you film, when you film, how you upload. Like, find your own niche and be original, because there's 1,000 copies of me out there now, and they're all fans, but then they eventually turn into almost like haters, because they see how hard it is and they're mad and they're frustrated and like, you don't deserve this, I deserve that. And and I understand it, because I remember competing and seeing the guys above me and whatnot. But to answer your original question about the 100,000 plaque or the million plaque, those were cool, but I got to admit that the single most important milestone I ever hit was like 1,000 subscribers. That 1,000 subscribers was just mind-blowing to me. And even smaller creators, and it's so weird to say 60,000 subscribers is a smaller creator. Have you ever been anywhere where there were 60,000 people there?
Never.
And you stood in front of them and they said, "I want more"?
No.
Well, you do on YouTube. It's 60,000 people. It's a massive. It's 3 times the size of my town. Just an absolutely incredible accomplishment. But that 1,000 for me was just mind blowing and mind boggling, and incredibly motivating. But for newer creators, I highly. It seems as though you got to be a little younger to make it these days, simply because they know what's a little bit more trendy, and how to do the thumbnails and titles and that sort of thing.
A little more sensational too.
Yeah, and I get that, and I understand it. And I don't mind sensational thumbnails. I try to do them all the time, and they used to be great, but I think that because I was doing thumbnails a certain way, everybody started doing thumbnails that way within my niche type of thing, and kind of drowned it out everybody. So definitely got to come up with a new way to do thumbnails. You know, these days is whatever Mr. Beast does, do what he does, film the way he does, edit the way he does. I can't make a video where I have the words keep popping up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't do it.
I love it, man. You crack me up, man. I love it, man. This is one of my favorite podcasts that I've done. Now, I want to talk about this. I seen about 4 months ago you had a mishap, a hurricane happen.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a disaster happening and having to work through that. How was that?
You know, at this point, it seems as though like I welcome the disasters because I know I'm going to keep the fish alive, and I'm like, this will make a good video. I'm like, yeah, disaster. Everything's fine. Maybe some leaks and, trees fell over and that sort of thing. If I lose power, I can put it all on a generator these days. The worst disaster ever was during like 4 or 5 years ago, we had a really big heat wave where like people were dying from it, which is really weird for Canada. But I also had a mice or a mouse problem that was, and they were eating into my heat pump, which does my heating and cooling. So they ate through that, and we had a heat pump, and we had a heat wave. So I had no way to cool the aquarium gallery down. Besides like a couple of air conditioners that were for the house to keep my kids cooled down. And of course, I couldn't get the heat pump repaired and couldn't buy new air conditioners because it's a heat wave and they're selling out everywhere. I think we only had one little air conditioner because once you have heat pumps, you don't have a need for an air conditioner. I think I had one little one that was big enough to maybe cool this little room down, but not the gallery. Anyways, all the tanks started heating, and the best thing that I could do to cool them down was to continuously do water changes with cold water. I did that for a day or two, and I'm talking straight water changes. Water's constantly running, and I ran my well dry. I'm not on municipal or government water. I have a well drilled, and I ran it dry. So we're going through a heat wave. I can't cool everything down. I run out of water, and the tanks are heating. And if the tanks get too hot, the fish can't breathe, and they just eventually croak. I've tried floating ice bottles, and I did everything I could. And out of I think I had 3 to 5,000 fish out here, I lost 3 fish, which wasn't a big deal. It was like a little gourami nobody cared about. But it was also 2 sharks that I just hatched, and that was heartbreaking. But that's probably one of the worst disasters I've had. I've had pipes burst, I guess. You just gotta, no matter when you're dealing with a tremendous amount of animals, not even a tremendous amount. Let's say you got 10, 15 tanks. The odds of something going wrong on one of them every couple of years is probably normal to expect, like a filter breaks or once a year something happens. But when you have 15, then you have 15 times the chances of something happening.
Right.
And I have lots of tanks and lots of fish, so just the chances of something happening is more exponential. It doesn't mean that things are constantly going wrong. It's just there's so many things and opportunities for it to happen that these days I don't think the only thing that can happen now, because I have safeguards for everything, is a tank explodes. But my 2000's never going to explode because I technically built that to be bulletproof. So concrete at 2,500 psi, 6 inches thick, is technically bulletproof against most guns. But so I built it 6 inches thick. I'm sorry, 8 inches thick instead of 6, and I built it with 5,000 psi instead of 2,500 psi cement. And I reinforced it with rebar, so it's definitely bulletproof there. The acrylic itself is bulletproof at 1.2 inches thick, and my acrylic is 1.6 inches thick. I built it to be bulletproof because I thought it would be funny, and my cost didn't really expand. But I have a bulletproof tank.
That is insane. A bulletproof. I love it. And he's giving us so much knowledge. And just at the end of the day, the key is to always be, disaster ready. And if not, just get in there, do what you got to do to keep your animals alive. I love it. Now, I want to give you a hot seat question. You're amazing at what you do. Like I said, you have the Midas touch. Now, let's say I'm a movie producer and I'm making a movie, The King of D.I.Y. What actor am I getting to play Joey? Any actor?
Ooh, that's easy. Super easy. I got 2 for you. Now, mind you, I need a haircut and probably shave and take care of myself a little bit better these days. But it's winter. I'm in hibernation. Um, uh, I would do Mark Wahlberg or Channing Tatum, just
Dude,
because.
you look like both of them.
Yeah, that's what my girlfriend says. But if I had to do it based on acting and like just sexual prowess, I would do Denzel Washington. That's my favorite actor of all time. But I tried to pick something that somebody looked. I probably Mark Wahlberg would probably be the best fit because we're both kind of blocky and we got like muscular dad bods. No waist. It's just one block. We're like chunks.
I love it. I
Way.
love it.
Yeah.
I'd pay to see that movie, man. Now, being a YouTube creator, we just kind of touched on this topic. To be successful, you almost have to be sensational. And I've been trying to pull away from being sensational. But my question to you is, have you ever thought about making some sensational videos like, oh my God, my lionfish stung me, or oh my God, I was moving and I got stung by a jellyfish, or they're in the reptile hobby, they have bite videos. They have those. I had Adam from the Kings of Pain on my platform. And they take those bites, they take those things. Have you ever thought of making a video like that?
I've had pretty sensational things happen. However, I don't stage anything, and I think a lot of that stuff is staged. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm good at telling stories, so I can take a tiny little thing that happened and turn it into a big deal. So it's not that difficult for me to make something sensational. It's never really crossed my mind, but I do get a little excited when I get an idea for a video and I'm like, man, that's going to be a killer video if I just tell the whole story. For example, I had a stingray go missing. I had no clue where it was. And I just decided, I got security footage of the tank. I could tell the story. I even had the footage of me getting it. It just went behind the background. Not a big deal. Like in day-to-day life, I would just look in the tank. Oh, he's not in there. Let me look behind the background. Oh, there he is. A fishnet put him in. But I turned it into a big, mystery type video. And I think it did like 1 million views or something like that. So
Jesus.
Yeah. So I think that you can make sensational videos responsibly by just getting creative with your storytelling.
Right. Being a little clickbaity, but still having that good story. I love it. Yeah. Now, I've been wanting to ask this. What's it like owning an octopus? Oh
man, it's a really weird experience at first. There's some ethics behind it because octopus are said to be some of the most intelligent animals in the world. And to keep them in captivity is incredibly cruel, but to keep them entertained and whatnot, I think it comes down to the species. So when I ordered my octopus, mind you, I have a small local fish store. I ordered a certain type, and then these came in. It's not what I wanted. They get really big. The species that I had, like public aquarium type of thing, and I eventually rehomed it. But during my time with it, well, this species was also nocturnal, so I never seen it unless it was at nighttime. It didn't even eat unless it would eat at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I was getting up like a new father with a newborn baby that had to be fed at like 4 or 5 in the morning every day. And it just wasn't the species that I wanted, but it's not like he could send it back or sell it to somebody else. So I just took it anyway. But it was definitely interesting. It wasn't the species for me. That was the Atlantic white spot, and I definitely wouldn't do that species again. There are smaller species of octopus you can keep. However, one of the things I don't like about that is a big reason why I also rehomed it. I'll preface this with I don't really watch other aquarium channels, not because I don't support them. I got tons of friends that I check in, like their video, see how they're doing, that sort of thing. But I always found it to be influential in terms of like if you watch somebody too much, you'll start talking like them, making videos like them. You lose your uniqueness. And worst of all, like if your friend makes a video or if that person made that video, you're like, well, now I can't make that video. So I don't really pay attention to anybody. And what I didn't know is when I got my octopus was how sensationalized they were becoming, but in the wrong way. Like my octopus escaped the airplane on an airplane, or people filming it crawling across the floor. Like, oh, it escaped. No, it didn't. You put it there. and filmed it, and I don't want to be a part of that.
Right.
So that was a huge reason for me taking a step back as well, because I'm only helping the algorithm rank these videos and push them up and push them up and push them up. You want to do it, sure. There's nothing I can do to stop you, and I don't make videos about people chastising them. What I do is I just don't talk about it. If we don't look at it, we don't talk about it, they won't do it. You know, because they are doing it for views, and if we just don't support it, you know, what's the worst thing that somebody can truly do to a YouTuber? Dislike the video, leave a mean comment? No, of course not. YouTube loves engagement. Make a bad video about them? No, that's one of the best things you could do for another YouTuber, regardless of how good or bad you talk. The worst possible thing that can happen is people stop watching your channel. Then it's over, no matter what you do. So, you know, I make a habit out of not watching those and or helping them get into my recommended and things like that. There's a ton of things that I do behind the scenes that I try to stay responsible, but a lot of the times it only hurts me because I really do want to keep certain types of animals and fish, but then these days I'm starting to kind of like, I'll research it on YouTube a little first and see who's keeping them, and then, you know, I try to avoid, you know, the negativity and the ones that are doing it poorly. But at the same time, I guess I could keep them and do it properly and responsibly, and, you know, it's a catch-22. It's something that I got to think about constantly, and I think that's one of the biggest things that holds my channel back, is I'm too worried about the responsibility that comes with it. I know I'm going to do everything ethically. I know I'm going to be responsible with my animals. It's just you know, there's certain animals that I want to keep, but if I keep them, they can become trendy and other people want to get them. Like, I hatched shark eggs 3 or 4 years ago, and millions of people watch that. Next thing you know, everybody's hatching shark eggs. You know, it's just like ripping the eggs open and stuff. I was like, man, I didn't even know that was happening.
Right. You're an influencer, man. A lot of stuff that you do, people want to follow behind you, man. Crazy interview, man. I appreciate you for coming on. Now, a couple more questions and I'll let you go. You know, I want people to be able to have fun, but also come here to learn. You know, getting into fish keeping, what do you think is like the biggest misconception when it comes to fish that you could just kind of clear up and like, yeah, that's not true?
Oh, biggest misconception about fish in general? Jeez.
Fish keeping.
Fish keeping in general. I guess like most people will get into the hobby and get a beta, like a Siamese fighting fish, and or like a goldfish, and think they can put it in a bowl, and it doesn't need a filter and it doesn't need a heater because these fish live in mud puddles. That's not really true. They do need filtration, they do need heating, they do need circulation, just as much as we need that. You know, I always kind of like, when it comes to circulation, and this is such a horrible, you know, way to put it, but like circulation in an aquarium, for example, is like farting under the blankets and not letting it out. It's just gonna stay in there. You gotta let it out. You need to circulate that. Yeah.
I love it, man. This was, like I said, an amazing hour. I am kind of curious. I know you keep fish, but who's your favorite fish keeper right now?
Who's my favorite fish keeper right now? Oh, besides me?
Yeah, besides you. Who's somebody that you just like, okay, I love them. I love what they're doing.
Oh, man. Who could I say? Let me think here. Okay, I don't know a lot of their names because they don't speak English, but there's a tremendous amount of, like, absolutely insane aquarists over in, like, Thailand, Singapore, like, in the Asian area, like in Asia, I guess. That would be, like, my favorite type of hobbyist right now, and or location for hobbyists, but I don't know any of their names. Geez, I follow them on Instagram, I guess, but I don't remember their names. But there's so many, and one of the things we do is we gravitate towards YouTubers because that's who we recognize the most. But most of my favorite aquarium hobbyists don't make YouTube videos.
Okay. Well, you're one of my favorites, probably one of the top ones.
Appreciate it.
Now, before we leave, I got to tell you something. Now, don't be mad at me.
I'm gonna be mad. I always get mad.
Don't be mad at me. I know you said stingray a lot of times. When you're talking to reptile keepers, you can't mention stingrays.
Yeah.
We got kind of a sore spot.
I know. But if you kind of Steve would have understood. He understood stingrays and what transpired during that, swimming trip. It was just an accident. Stingrays are not predators. They use their barbs for defense as opposed to offense, and they bring it up like a scorpion really fast. And the stingray would have only felt threatened. It would be very similar to, opening up a snake's drawer and grabbing it immediately. Maybe it might bite me from moving too quick, or I scared it, and I think it was just something like that. So, it's unfortunate that it happened at all, but I do think that he would definitely not be mad.
Right. I agree. Stingrays are beautiful creatures, and I actually got the pet one. I know this is crazy. It was at the zoo. I think I got the pet one. It was freaking awesome, and I'm jealous that you even own them. I want one now, and I know I shouldn't have one.
The top. Did you feel the top and the bottom?
I only got to feel the top.
So that would have felt like sandpaper, depending on the species. But that's covered in denticles. That's what their teeth are too. Is just in the backs of their mouths. Is just denticles stacked up on top of each other. They eat like a cow. They don't have teeth like you would think. That's more for crushing and grinding. And underneath of them is just very soft skin, incredibly soft skin. So it's unfortunate that you didn't get to feel the contrast and feeling under them, because it's a really weird, really gross feeling. Yeah,
I'm jealous. Everybody in the chat, how awesome is it? Mr. Joey owns stingrays. He owns octopuses, stingrays, everything you could think of. I'm jealous. You have an amazing life. This was an amazing hour. I want to say thank you so much for coming on and just chatting, because you're busy and you didn't have to do it.
This is what I do every day, and I don't mind. I don't mind doing this for anybody, really, if I have time and if I don't have anything booked that day. I thought you wanted to do this yesterday, I think it was. Yeah, last night. And I was like, oh, I might have to cancel because Tamara and I had some wine. I was like, I swore off drinking and going live for the rest of my life.
well, you need to go live with some of my friends, the Iron Animal Show. They have a great podcast. It's so easy to talk to you. You're so down to earth. Again, man, there's a reason that you're crushing it in everything that you do. Now, before we leave, I do got to say this. Brian Barczyk will tell you, he's been on the podcast. He'll tell you, you can have the most amazing video, but if your thumbnail is terrible, nobody will watch your video. So on the count of 3, I want to make a thumbnail face. Are you down with that?
Yeah, just I'll use a fishnet.
All right, so on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. There it is. Hey, don't go anywhere. I'm going to put you backstage. Thank you again so much for coming on and chatting with us. Man, just an amazing hour talking to you, man. I appreciate you, bro.
No problem.
All right. Don't go anywhere.
I won't.
Man, how awesome is that? Mr. Joey, the king of DIY. He killing it when it comes to the tanks. Do-it-yourself videos, fish, YouTube. He's down to earth. He's humble and gave us an hour of his time. So just such an amazing episode. As always, before we get out of here, man, thank you guys for coming on and chatting with us. This was just a fun hour of chatting with him, man. There's a reason he is where he is. Now, hopefully you guys come back and check out the next episode. Until next week, man, this is Big Reptile Talk, and we out of here. And as always, we always show love to the sponsors. Y'all make sure y'all check out Mile High Mutations. Y'all make sure y'all check out Morphed Ambitions, Large Marge Morse, MKL Exotics, Fry's Critters, Mad River Serpents. My brother was in the chat. Marino, you already know Morse, man. Y'all make sure y'all give him some love. Matt Yates, man. Ball Enhanced Pythons, King's Reptiles, Low Life Exotics, and Michaela, man. I appreciate all you guys. Until next time, man, this is Big Reptile Talk. And we out of here.
Whoa. Big Reptile Talk. Yeah, we working. Talking about service. Big Reptile Talk. When it comes to talking about snakes, yeah.